What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we are basically going to continue our coverage over DC Rebirth Cyborg. Now, with that being said, you guys have to remember that basically this is going to be the video that wraps up just the first story arc in DC Rebirth Cyborg. Yes, you heard that right. We had to do 3 videos for this storyline, and the reason why, because this storyline was actually 9 chapters long. That was not including the DC Rebirth Cyborg one-shot. So the first story arc was technically, you want to say 9, possibly 10 if you want to include the one-shot. Now, let me give you guys the quick rundown before we cover the last 2 chapters of this first story arc. Now remember, when it came to Cyborg by this point in the storyline, he just found out that basically his dad was taken away and being held as a hostage. And the person that he has been hanging out with is somebody pretending to be his father. Now, of course, this fake version of his father is the new bad guy of this storyline. But here's the thing, we have no idea about the name of this new bad guy yet. The only thing we do know right now is that he wants revenge against Cyborg's father. Now, whilst this fake version of Cyborg's father was around, he also created another Cyborg character. Yes, you heard that right. Cyborg got a sidekick slash companion, and her name was Variant. Now, he did only make Variant as a way to kind of use the alien tech inside of her to help him with his master plan. And that was the moment where Cyborg found out that basically the person who was pretending to be his father was not his father. And so Cyborg tried to stop him, but he was shut down by the fake version of his father. And so now the question is, what is going to happen to Cyborg? Because he was shut down by Variant, and we were left to believe that he could possibly be dead, even though we know he ain't dead. But of course, with cliffhangers, we're like, oh my god, is Cyborg actually dead? Now, the first couple pages are basically picking up with the police chasing after a particular person, and that particular person is Xenophon Clark. Now, actually, we met this character very briefly in our last video when Cyborg was walking around with his friend Blue. And of course, we were kind of left to believe that Xenophon Clark was this kid who's probably up to no good, but apparently Blue, this old man who's Cyborg's friend, does care for the kid a lot and wants to make sure the kid is not doing anything bad in the neighborhood. Well, of course, right now, he's being chased after by the police because Xenophon Clark is kind of a thief, but he only steals technology. But either way, though, the police are trying to arrest him. Now, of course, they were able to corner him, and so it's kind of like to Xenophon, okay, I'm cornered, let me go ahead and get arrested, and let's end this chase. But the problem is, though, the cops are so tired of Xenophon that basically they're going to beat down on him because they feel like he's a horrible person and he should be beaten down. And so they actually do start attacking Xenophon Clark. But that is the moment you have Cyborg appear. Now, of course, when Cyborg does appear, this when the police officers stop beating down on Xenophon because Cyborg is here. Now, at first, you do have one of the cops actually try their best to talk some smack to Cyborg, like, listen, we're not scared of you. You can't do anything at all to us. Listen, we're going to take him in and then we'll still continue to beat on him. Like, there's nothing you can do to basically defend this kid. But that is the moment you have Cyborg say, listen, I have cameras on me and there's cameras around this area. All I have to do is show the camera footage of what you guys did to him and you guys basically lose your jobs. And also, I looked at y'all police records and you two are in some very hot water right now. So like, if I was you guys, I would just walk away before you try to test me, Cyborg, member of the Justice League. And of course, you do have the police officers back away. But there's a reason why Cyborg actually saved Xenophon Clark 4. Now that is the moment we actually come to find out why Cyborg saved Xenophon Clark 4. And the reason why, because Cyborg wants to put Xenophon through a test. Because Cyborg knows that when it comes to Xenophon, Xenophon is great with technology. The kid is on a whole nother level. And so this is Cyborg saying, I have a mission for you. And this mission is basically you breaking into Star Labs. Now that right there is a very huge thing to ask somebody. And of course, for Xenophon, he's kind of like, excuse me? You want me to break into Star Labs? That is basically the Pentagon here in Detroit. Why in the world would I do that? But this is Cyborg saying, because this is a test. I want to see if you can actually do it. If you do it, trust me, great things will be coming to you down the road. But this is something I want to see you do. Now, Xenophon is doing this for two reasons. One, yes, to kind of help out Cyborg, but two, because Xenophon wants to break into Star Labs, because Star Labs has a lot of great technology that Xenophon wants, because remember, he is a tech thief. And so right now he's kind of like, you know what? I'm down. I will basically help you out. Just show me a map, show me different things that can help me out, and I will basically make a plan to break into Star Labs. So here we go. Now that is the moment where we basically do see Xenophon come up with a game plan to break into Star Labs. Now, like Xenophon said, breaking into Star Labs is not so easy, because Star Labs is basically the Pentagon here in Detroit. They have the best security to protect the place. So even though Cyborg and Xenophon were able to get into Star Labs, there are still other kinds of defenses that were made to protect Star Labs even after somebody has basically broken into the building. And so right now, you're seeing Xenophon trying to get away from all these different security systems that were placed by Star Labs. And so this is actually a huge test for the character. So when Cyborg say, hey man, listen, I am going to put you through a test to see if you are actually able to break into Star Labs, Cyborg was not kidding. He literally made sure that Cyborg is going through the, not Cyborg, he is making sure that Xenophon is going through the ringer at the moment. And so then once Xenophon is able to actually reach a certain room, that is the moment you have Cyborg actually tell us that he was never there the entire time. That basically he was using a small little robot to kind of fly around, but when this robot flew around, it showed a hologram version of Cyborg. And so the whole entire time, while Xenophon was thinking that he was talking to Cyborg, he really wasn't. I mean, he was, but not really. And what I mean by that is, the reason why Cyborg had Xenophon break into Star Labs is to turn Cyborg's main body back on. Because remember, at the end of our last video, Cyborg was shut down by our unknown bad guy. The bad guy who we have no idea what his name is. But either way, at the end of our last video, he shut Cyborg down. And so that is why Cyborg had tricked Xenophon to kind of help him out by bringing him here to Star Labs to have him turn Cyborg back on. Now, once Cyborg does wake back up, of course, Cyborg's body is not in Cyborg's control. It does take a little short period of time for Cyborg to regain control of his body. But once he does that, Cyborg is back online now. Now, that is the moment you have Cyborg basically find out that he can't use all of his weapons like he wants to. Like, apparently there is some kind of virus in there that's kind of slowing him down. And so he can't do a lot of things like he wants to do. Like, for example, right now, he can't really boom tube like he wants to. Now, with that being said, that is the moment you have the fake version of Cyborg's father, our mysterious bad guy, appear as a hologram to begin talking to Cyborg, where of course you do have the bad guy do the usual bad guy speech like, oh, you can't win, I'm going to stop you, and let's not forget, nobody else knows that I'm not really Celia Stone, because everybody else in Star Labs actually believes that our mysterious bad guy, who has been pretending to be Celia Stone, believes that he is actually Celia Stone. And so right now you have our fake bad guy here basically tell all security of Star Labs to shoot down Cyborg, which of course makes sense. And so now Cyborg and Xenophone have to get away before they are basically killed by security. Now, you do have Cyborg say before he's able to leave, he has to do a couple things. First, he has to get rid of his source code. Remember, back in our DC Rebirth Cyborg one-shot, Cyborg found this secret room that was basically holding like a backup code to Cyborg. And so with that, he wants to make sure that this backup code doesn't get out into the public or fall in the wrong hands. Because if it does fall in the wrong hands, it can basically lead into more problems. Now, the second thing he wants to do is, well, of course, save Variant. Because remember, Variant is the female version of Cyborg. On top of that right there, she was good, then turned bad, but back to good. But basically, she was shut down because she did some bad deeds in our last video. But right now, Cyborg wants to make sure to get her out of here, because if they don't, and they leave her here with our mysterious bad guy, he could basically use the alien tech that's part of her for his own evil needs. Because remember, when it comes to Cyborg and Variant, they are made out of mother boxes. But either way, when Cyborg tries to leave, well, that is the moment he is actually stopped by. And of course, that is the moment where he's actually stopped by our mysterious bad guy. Now, with that being said, it does lead into a battle between Cyborg and our mysterious bad guy. But while they're fighting against one another, well, of course, that is the moment you have our mysterious bad guy reveal to Cyborg that he is keeping his father in a completely different facility. And so, of course, Cyborg now knows that his father is alive, but of course, his father is being held against his will. Now, with that being said, though, this is the moment where we actually learn a tad bit more about Cyborg's new mysterious bad guy, this character who was going around pretending to be Celia Stone, where basically he tells Cyborg that his father actually created him, that this fake Celia Stone is, of course, is a robot, but he was created by Cyborg's father. Now, at first, you have Cyborg's dad say, no, that can't be true because I have no idea who you are or what you are. But that is the moment you have our mysterious bad guy say, oh, you know who I am, but you know me as Otak. And as soon as he said that name, Cyborg's father begins to freak out a whole lot more. Now, when we get into the final chapter of today's video, we actually do pick up with Cyborg right now getting ready to attack our new mysterious character. Now, his name at the end of the last chapter was Oltak, but of course, that was the name that was given to him when Celia Stone was actually making him. But his actual name that he's going to go by for the rest of the series is Anomaly. Had a hard time saying that. But either way, our new bad guy right here, right now, wants to tell us about the origin of how he was created by Celia Stone. Now, with this story right here, this basically answers a lot of questions that you guys may had as we were covering this series, but also it makes things even more interesting for the character of Celia Stone, but also for Cyborg as well. And so what Anomaly tells us is that basically in the past, Celia Stone, his wife, and also their assistant was working on an experiment where basically they were trying to make a cell that was able to regenerate. Now, that was not the only purpose. The purpose of this was to be able to have that cell be able to change into almost any kind of cell as a way to help anybody who's fighting against different kinds of diseases. And so this was supposed to be a very unique new kind of science experiment that could basically save a lot of lives, like people who have cancer. Now, with that being said, though, what happened was instead of taking their time and making sure the experiment goes well, Sly Stone kept wanting to rush it. He wanted to be done at a faster rate so that he can show the world what he had created. The problem was, though, this experiment did involve a lot of radiation. And so when they were doing the final test, because they believed they were actually able to do what they wanted to do, the experiment exploded. And when it did explode, of course, that radiation hit Cyborg's mother, and that is how she got sick, because that is how she got cancer. And so, of course, that what led into Cyborg's father, Sly Stone, working so hard to basically find a cure as a way to save his wife. Now, of course, we know what comes next, where basically Cyborg's father began to work in his lab even more because he was trying to find a cure as a way to save the life of his wife. Now, with that being said, what he did was he made clones of himself. Now, these clones were basically used as a way to test his new cure for cancer to see if he will be able to actually find a cure for cancer. Because if he does, then he could give that cure over to his wife. Now, here's the thing, though. One of those clones is actually Anomaly. One of the clones was Anomaly, which explains why he looks just like Sly Stone. But you didn't have Anomaly tell us that basically by the time he was so close at finding a cure for cancer, Cyborg's mother died. And so he was too late to actually give her the cure that he was trying to make. Now, after the death of Cyborg's mother, Sly Stone no longer had a purpose for the clones, and so of course he got rid of them. But when he did get rid of them, of course he gave them over to basically another scientific group. Now when he did that, this other scientific group began to study the clones and do different kinds of experiments on the clones. Now of course most of the clones died except one. And of course, that one is Anomaly. He's the one who actually survived. But then he tells us that he was saved by one of the scientists who actually felt bad for Anomaly. And so that scientist let him go. Now, of course, when that scientist did let him go, Anomaly did kill all the other scientists in that laboratory except the one that had freed him. But right after he had freed that scientist, he turned that scientist into a robot cyborg character as well. And matter of fact, that same scientist that was turned to a cyborg kind of person is the one watching over the real Sly Stone over at a different facility. Now, of course, this does lead right back into another battle between Cyborg and Anomaly, because Cyborg wants to get rid of him, but Cyborg wants to save his father. And so, of course, this leads into another battle between the two characters. Now, this fight does go on for a lot of pages, and I mean a lot of pages. But of course, it's a way for DC to get ready for the next storyline we're going to do later on in the week or probably next week. But either way, this is the moment where you have Cyborg fight against Anomaly. And when they fight, it's not a fair fight for Cyborg because Anomaly had put so many different viruses into Cyborg's body that basically right now, Cyborg is not at full power. And so this fight is not a fair fight for Cyborg. And of course, they have to escape. Now, remember what I said earlier, though. When it came to Cyborg, right now, he's having a hard time doing anything, even boom tubing. And remember, boom tubing is a way for Cyborg to kind of teleport almost anywhere in the universe. And of course, right now, Cyborg is going to try to boom tube so that they'll be able to actually escape Star Labs before Anomaly is able to kill them. Now, of course, he's able to make a boom tube, but that boom tube actually leaves him in the middle of the air right over Detroit. And of course, they do crash land into the sewers. But the story ends with basically Cyborg and Xenophone being able to get out of Star Labs. They did teleport somewhere in the middle of Detroit, but now they had to figure out what their next move is. especially for Cyborg, because now he needs to know how in the world would he be able to stop somebody who has now taken over Star Labs. And Star Labs do hold a lot of powerful experiments that could basically be used against Cyborg, which means the next storyline, Cyborg does have his hands full. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.